Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal Brainspace, the industry's leading AI eDiscovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to watch me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in eDiscovery. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha, Senior Vice President of Brand Awareness at Reveal. Each Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, I host an episode of eDiscovery Leaders Live where I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. Past episodes are available on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select Resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. Our guest this week is Esther Garcia. Her title, and we'll come back to this, her title is Senior Consultant, Advanced Technologies Case Insights at Epic. She has a JD from Southwestern Law School and a BA from the University of San Diego. She's been in several different roles at Epic, a current one, a Case Insight Consultant, and a Senior Review Manager. Worked at a couple of other providers before that, Concilio and Advanced Discovery in various roles, and practiced for a while at, I'm not sure if I got the pronunciation correct, but Coe Law Group. Esther, welcome.
Good day. Hi.
Glad to have you here. So as I said earlier, we'd like to come back to that title. And I'd like you to describe for us what that Case Insights part of the title means.
Well, it's basically exactly what it means, Case Insights, providing insights to your case, but most predominantly about your data set. There's many times that, clients collect millions of documents, and then where do you start? And so that's where the insights of the Epic team does. It provides insights to your data set, whether it's to a particular question or to just a broad stroke of understanding where we started collections. We exactly don't know where we have empty gaps or missing conversations where we know we need to produce. Can you tell us those inputs from our data sets? And so it really is the Case Insights team at Epic provides case teams with insight to how to approach the data set, whether investigatory needs, production needs, or just understanding from a very top overview, what information do I currently have, and have I done my collections properly?
So a traditional and a common approach to dealing with a situation where you've got hundreds of thousands or millions of documents is to do a certain level of culling, try to get rid of the stuff you're pretty sure you don't care about, take what's left, throw an army of people at it, following a manual that's been put together ahead of time so they know what to look for, have them go through those documents. Originally it was on paper, now on screen, and identify them with respect to issues and the like, reporting back up through possibly several levels of a review manager, and finally getting to someone at the core investigative team or core trial team, or not getting to them. From what you described, it sounds to me as if you're talking about something different from that, right?
It's the evolution of that, basically. Yeah. How many times as a former review manager, we call through data by coding documents for non-responsive and responsiveness. And then you're left with a category of documents with issue tags. But how responsive is that for a case team when they're trying to create their case in chief? So it is very interesting. It's the reinvention of prioritizing how you want to see your data set and how to attack it. At times, you could say that we just trim the fat of the review, where it's using advanced technologies like Reveal and BrainSpace in order to help us just get to the focus intent of the client, not go through the busy noise. If there is a production need, then the busy noise will come into play. Then you have to follow all the traditional aspects of review. But Case Insights is sort of, it's taking on trimming the fat and giving you the creme de la creme. It's giving you the a la carte options as well of you picking and choosing what's important to your needs when you need it. It's either early on, in the middle of maybe the review. You found the hot document in the middle of review. What now? What else do you need to anticipate? And sometimes the question is, we don't have the commodity of time. And so that's where the Case Insights team comes in order to provide the commodity of time for case teams, in order to develop a very well comprehensive argument in order to get what they need out of whatever court proceedings or even meeting confers.
What then does this process look like for a client?
It's at the very beginning, it's a much more personal interaction. The Case Insights teams gets to know the case team and the key issues of the case. We do learn about the matter very quickly, and it's a much more personal, consultative approach.
How do you learn about the matter initially? So it's different from someone on the law firm side preparing a review manual, handing it over, maybe giving you a 1, 2, 3, even 8-hour training, where you're the lecture hall style student, right? You're doing something different.
Well, it's a combination of getting all the resources, from complaints to responses to having a one-on-one conversation with the case team after you've digested a lot of the information. And hopefully, most of the time, what I hope is I digest the information, we have the data set, we can ingest it into an AI tool, depending on what the matter is, BrainSpace, NextLP, sort of negotiating that with the client beforehand. And then by the time that you have this one-on-one conversation with the client, you have a basic understanding as a consultant of what the data set is sort of already anticipating, or what key issues it highlights very well versus those that don't.
Having had those meetings, and now starting in on the next step, how do you go about helping clients find those key pieces of information, key documents, for example?
It's the data trends. At the end of the day, you follow the data trends. It's the minute data trends across different sections of whichever AI tool you're using. For Reveal, NextLP, or BrainSpace, you basically follow the cookie trail of the data trends. And it could be a really minute item, but once you've narrowed down to the key issues or a key timeline period, the data starts speaking to you in a way that it's on a very high level. It's whether it's responsive or non-responsive, or it could contain some of the good dirt that you're trying to find, or the good supporting documents the counsel needs. It's following the data trends, and that's what the AI tools really does well. It highlights data trends that the human eye or a human person can't quickly understand, because it will take that laborious amount of review in order to collect all that information, and then collecting them within dashboards within the review tool that you're using. So I believe that before you follow data trends by the coding of the reviewers, now we can anticipate using AI technologies how those data trends can provide insight, and then the coding of the reviewers, or your own coding, can confirm what you would normally see in that original phase of the review.
When you talk about data trends, what sort of trends in the data are you referring to? What does this look like from the client perspective?
From the client perspective, it's understanding the timeline, the periods of the timeline that you're given, the key facts. It also provides you insights to the communicators, like key communicators within that timeline period. For a lot of my investigatory needs, I do really enjoy NextLP's communication style, the Reveal NextLP communication style, because it does give insight, quick insight, to understand who the communicators to key people are. So if I'm able to provide a list of individuals of, hey, person Jane Doe has these top communications with these additional people, listing those data trends with communication styles, whether it's these conversations happen during normal course of business, after hours, they have some sentiment that is negative or positive. And those are the data trends that you try to follow. You try to follow what the key issue is. If you're looking at a sexual harassment matter, you're looking for those negative connotations. You're looking for those email forwards that you're seeing the individuals correspond with. You're trying to understand how the communicators are emailing to themselves and others. And then with using Reveal NextLP, you are allowed to see that from a communications perspective by looking at the clustering, by looking at the communicators, by looking at the entities. And then those data trends are the ones that we report back to, how those data trends report back to the key issues. So it's understanding what the key issues are, but then also how to see how those data trends support the key issues or negate them.
The more traditional approach I described at the beginning is a deliberate approach, not necessarily accomplished quickly. What sort of time frame are we talking about for beginning to find data trends, and how long should a client expect this to potentially take?
Not more than 40 hours from my experience, but there's matters where I have jumped into the data set and within 7 hours have found the most significant hot documents, which then leads to an immediate settlement or negotiations, which is something that just recently happened. So there is no time frame. It took, for that one matter, it took seven hours to get them the most what they needed out of their data set. And to understand the data trends there, it sometimes also comes with experience. I've seen so many matters throughout the years as a review manager and now as a consultant, where we always see data trends. It's just how are they highlighted and how are we using it to our advantage? And that's the key difference. And so when I do have an investigatory need, I ask myself, how are people acting in other data trends? Because as a psychologist once said to me, people don't really change their habits much. And so if you're trying to find key themes that happen investigatory, like sexual harassment, your key group of people or key issues are going to probably have some reiteration from other matters that you've seen, colloquial wise, like the way how people communicate, the way how people were hiding conversations. Those are the little bits of data trends that you accumulate through years of experience. But then also understanding how those data trends peak when you're trying to look for data for the key documents. That's when you start seeing, if I make a search within Reveal NextLP or BrainSpace, and then all of a sudden I start seeing that all the key communicators that I have on my radar are being highlighted, then I know I'm on the right trend of finding additional documents that are probably key and significant for the case.
For those of us who've worked on review projects, which is probably just about everybody watching this, we're familiar with working with teams as small as half dozen people or so, up to situations where you've got 200 people or more on the review team. How many people do you have involved in this type of exercise?
It's typically just myself. And it's some matters that require, the request is we want to push into the case team, outside counsel, the best documents. So we don't want them to be reviewing 4,000, 5,000 documents, defeating the purpose, once again, of this whole practice. We want 1,000 of the best documents. And so when those requests come in, then we have like one additional reviewer, an analyst from our team, assist us through the process of reviewing those documents in order to train a model and really get an update to the case team that is productive for their use.
Hence part of the ability to turn things around in 7 hours.
Correct.
Right. Yes.
Correct. The name of the game here is how can we find the best documents in the most efficient time? And I think as many of us are on this call today would understand is that efficiencies has always been the name of the game, from review to even advanced technologies. And so I do appreciate the fact that what we're doing here within the Case Insights team is truly creating that efficiency to the upteenth degree, I do believe.
In a more traditional approach, the review tended to be for relevance. It tends to be for relevance, and it tends to fit within a fairly linear approach to the case, so that you've identified data, preserved data, processed data, motion practice is ongoing. At some point then, reviewers are going through content, and it's not a one-time only thing, but it only fits within a certain segment of the life of a lawsuit, or for that matter, an investigation. Where do the Case Insight services fit?
Throughout the whole life cycle, the whole EDRM cycle. We were just conversing about that. And for many of our matters, we've realized that while we are able to complete the work, like the significant amount of work within 40 hours, typically, we always proceed to follow the whole life cycle of the case. So there's many times where we create the initial findings report, but then we architect a review workflow for the reviewers in order to prioritize the needs of the case team. And then finally, at the last end, because we have followed the whole life cycle of the matter, when depositions or trial prep comes to play, we are then requested many times to, hey, we're trying to find this document. Do you, we've produced X amount of documents. Can you find us a document that would respond to this request, or that we can use within depo prep or trial prep? So we're actually seeing it throughout the whole life cycle of the case from beginning to end. So once the data is collected, to once the reviewers get into the data set and actually review the documents, and a large production is then made, to the final step of just depo prep and trial prep, of really finalizing that last step and making sure that the case teams have everything that they need to know before they go into those trial events.
One advantage of doing this as a discussion is that I'm not in the situation I would be were I taking your deposition. I can go ahead and ask a question where I got no idea what your answer is going to be. And this one is, have you used these capabilities real time in a deposition, or at a hearing or a trial, but most likely in a deposition, so that the attorneys taking typically, or possibly depending the deposition, either would have you in the room or have you available during the deposition to do the type of work you're talking about?
Have not been requested to be in the room, but I have been told in advance, where we have a deposition on this particular day, it's between these hours, we may request some items, and do you mind getting us the PDFs once you find those documents? And it just happened recently for one of our clients, where they're in a deposition, it was the first part and they had a break, and so they emailed me immediately during the deposition. Someone emailed me saying, hey, they just said this in one of the in one of the answering of the questions. Can you find out if we have this email? And then following that, it was the break during lunch, me finding that document, me confirming with the case team, here's the document. Do you need it branded? Having the project manager the ESI project manager on the team brand the document if we needed to, and then just produce. But then at the same time, we've had the night before, we won't be able to contact you at all. We need to make sure that we have all the documents. And then finding out the next day that 72 exhibits got entered into. And that was part of all the work that we did in order to develop models in order for their key issues that they had in relations to one individual.
I would suggest that for the right depositions, your clients consider either having you there in the room, technology at your fingertips, or connected via a real-time connection, something like that, so that you can assist during the deposition. As a digression, I've been on all sides of that. I've been the attorney taking the deposition with that going on. I've been the deponent in that type of situation, and I've been the person providing that support. I think that's an area where you can offer a great deal of additional value. So a new service line for you.
A new service line for Epic, yes.
What types of clients are then you working with? Is it all with law firms, with corporate legal departments as well, with others?
It's in-house. It's in-house corporate America, like just in-house counsel. And then we do have outside counsel that brings matters to our attention because they understand they have a large data set. And who's better to address their data needs when they come to the case insights team. But then at the same time, we do have government agencies where we're able to help with their production and then the incoming production. And incoming production is a whole different beast, as many of us would understand, because it always comes not in the ideal form that you want it to have come in. So really understanding, and I have really enjoyed Reveal Next LP in the incoming productions for communication analysis, and truly get into the facts that once you have an incoming production, really to assess on that end, what data are you missing? And NextLP's communication analysis did a really great job of highlighting the conversations that were redacted and never logged, and then also at the same time, the conversations that just abruptly ended. And so we had a gap, and we understood that gap, and we were in our data assessment updates to the case team, we were able to let them know you have gaps in this. So when they needed to go for their requests that were specific to their state needs, they were able to address those gaps in their request.
So gaps in communication with the incoming data set. What other types of gaps do you look for?
Gaps in the timeline, also gaps in how it's data. If there's any data trends, especially attachment counts, that's something I follow. When people are attaching a large amount of documents abruptly, I can sometimes get to that looking at the data trends that BrainSpace or Reveal Next LP provides. So data tends to communication, to timeline, to even to the granular of just understanding the domains, like which domains are in play. It's basically it's an oyster bed of just information that can be extracted, and it's sometimes just going through all the steps within within both AI tools, just unclicking everything, just seeing what is there. And sometimes the data trends are not immediate to you, but as you're taking notes, you remember, oh, that topic came up on the last search. Let me see if I can combine this topic with these additional factors. And then those are the data trends that you try to see. Like as you're looking through for the key issues, what are the things that the tool is telling you, from people that are being communicated to the topics, to the terms that are being used, any weighted items. So it's basically trying to, as you collect the information from your key issues, see where the key issues, whatever data trends overlap from any sector. For me, a lot of it falls under the communication, because I feel people tend to show their cards in that aspect very much.
So we've talked about finding key documents. about determining gaps in the data sets. What about using these capabilities to answer key, or perhaps not even key, but answer key questions?
On a daily basis, answering key questions. So if the question is, did the general department know about these action items that were being discussed and argued? We go through this emotions of providing a memo of findings, and under that section of their question of did the department do anything wrong, we list out all the supporting documents that either support us saying no, they didn't do anything wrong, and these are the documents that highlights any issues. But at the end of the day, these are all the good documents that supports our findings, that really we don't believe the data set will have your hot document. Or on the flip side, walk them through their question in a timeline perspective, started from, January and then ending in December, and then walking them through answer that question. So yes, they did know. They were made aware of it when so-and-so brought it to their attention of January 2020. And then just walk them through all the documents that would support that, yes, you did find positive examples. Now, is it the end all of all the documents that you find? No, they're typically the best of the best, which supports their initial question of, should we review sometimes? Like, does the reporter actually have any substance in order for us to collect additional data and start a whole review and investigatory needs, internally speaking? And so typically we are presented with the very specific questions of general insight. Did the department know? Or, was there sexual harassment found within the department? And we are able to answer them in the positive and the negative, or even say, sorry, your data set completely silent to it. Maybe it's in another form. Start collecting your Slack messages or any form of chat messages. Let's see if that isn't anticipated. But that's typically something that we discuss at the very beginning of the data assessments once we get brought on, to make sure that we have all the data that we need to have before jumping in, so we don't duplicate our efforts more than once.
It sounds as if, from a big picture level, there are three key things that you try to deliver, and we've focused primarily on the first two. One is confirm. You think something happened, you think someone did something, you think someone communicated. Did that actually take place? Two is refute. We've got this story, but it doesn't look like it all holds together, and we're going to have to come up with a different story. And three, and really connected with the first two, it sounds like finding anomalies is critically important to what you do. It's the things that aren't what we already know about, but that could be very important in where we go with an investigation or a lawsuit. Am I understanding correctly with those three things?
Yeah, pretty much. The last part is the most entertaining, I think, finding the anomalies, because that to me takes a new form sometimes. No X amount of years within the industry prepares you for some of the anomalies. And the anomalies can be just basic understandings that the data set, that either the custodians really truly deleted data sets. And those are the anomalies that you sort of don't understand until you're quite into the data set. And you realize, okay, timeline looks good, communication looks great, but why can't there's nothing in the data trends that makes me believe that I should be suspicious of anything in this data set. And then you slowly start to peel away the layers, or create a model in order to peel away layers. Because that's the other thing. Everyone thinks the models is to find the responsive. Sometimes I use the model to find the non-responsive. So find the junk, find the items that are low probative. And it could be low probative are responsive documents, but it's training the model to be super receptive to the anomaly need of finding the tiny little seed in the seedling set. So it is the anomalies that make it really interesting day to day, because I think every data set, as much protocol and as much standards and practices there are all over the place, there are inconsistencies always with how one vendor to another vendor collects data, preserves, and even from a corporate standpoint, corporate America and corporate entities just stored, they have different data retentions and they have different privacy retentions. And so they could be, in fact, that all of the data set that you have are from a server that has mass mailers. And you receive the data set, you think it's really healthy, and then you start seeing this is all a lot of non-responsive stuff. So it's the anomalies that make it really interesting from a day-to-day basis, because that puts you to the test more. It's forcing you to think differently about the data sets, forcing you to remember about that anomaly for future data sets. So yes, the anomalies is definitely the third tripod to those to the three items.
Great. Well, thank you, Esther, so very much. Esther Garcia is a senior consultant, Advanced Technologies Case Insights, which is what we've been talking about today with Epic. I am George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. Esther, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, George.